What's going on, Faded Coach?
Hold on, you gotta. Can't see him on the camera.
No.
Go a little bit more.
What's going on, Faded Coacher? I'm Adrian Barone, and we're back with another tutorial. I got one of my youngest clients here on the chair today. Today we're gonna be breaking down how to do a high ball fade with a part on top. I hope y'all enjoy these steps, and let's jump right into it. Alright guys, before we start, give this video a thumbs up and show love to this little man as he sat patiently through this whole tutorial. And as usual, all the steps are in the description down below in case you want to screenshot them and take them with you to the barbershop. Here I'm just wetting the hair, getting it ready to trim. Just make sure you are combing in the direction of the cowlick so that way the hair sits in its neutral position. Alright, so we're going to trim off just a bit. And what I want to show y'all here is that I am going to pick up some of the hair that I previously cut alongside with my new section and use that as a guideline to then move from left to right. And I am going to create these horizontal sections. The smaller the sections, the better. But again, I'm going to pick up a piece that I previously cut alongside with a new piece as my guideline. Make sure you are doing that, guys. And just repeat that process all the way back again, creating these small horizontal sections. The smaller the better, that way when we cross check our work, there's not as much that we have to correct. As you can see, I'm using my left hand push that comb through to create these horizontal sections. And once you're done with that, again, just cross check your work now coming in vertical sections. It's pretty simple. Adding a little bit of gel to the comb that I could run through the part. That way I can just section it a lot more cleaner. And specifically using the fine side of the comb just to ensure that I get more of the follicles. We're going to take this left side of his down with a number 2. And we're going to run that all the way up to the part. And as you can see that adding a little bit of gel, it's going to tighten that part and hold that part in place. Now using my clipper with the lever completely closed, we're going to create our first guideline starting in that temple peak area, and we're going to take that all around the head. Make sure you're easy with all these guidelines and you're flicking out as we come to the top of the guidelines. Again, take that all around the head. Just make sure that you end up in that same temple peak area on the other side of the head. What you can always do is you can step back and view him from the front just to make sure that both sides align. Now we're going to open my lever all the way and create our second guideline, taking this one up about 1 inch or so. Just make sure you do run that parallel to the one underneath it. And again, easy with the strokes and flick out as you come to the top, as it is going to make it a lot easier when we come back and erase these guidelines. And my biggest tip I have for y'all when cutting kids' hair is stay very, very patient, as every single client is a walking billboard, guys. Now with my number 1 lever still in that fully open position, we're going to create our third guideline. And the biggest thing with these guidelines is just make sure that they're running parallel consistently around. You don't want it to start very thick and then come thin. Make sure they're running consistently parallel along the whole head. Slowed it down right here a little bit for y'all just so y'all can see my motion. I am flicking out. Still using my corded senior, but when you're working with kids that move a lot, I do recommend use corded so you can maneuver with them. Now with my number 2 guard lever still in that fully open position, we're going to continue the process. And since I did that left side of his with the number 2 lever closed, there's no reason to go over that. So we're going to start towards the back of the head. And the last guard that I'll be using will be the number 3 lever still in that fully open position. And with this, I'm going to exaggerate that flick out motion and just try to really connect the fade to that top length already. I'm curious to know though, what is y'all's best advice when it comes to cutting kids' hair? Do y'all give them candy, or what do y'all do? Or maybe just pinch their ears when their mom or dad's not looking? Let me know down in the comments below, guys. And as you can see, we have a little bit of buildup of bulk. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that with my thinning shears over comb technique. And every time you cut some, you just want to make sure that you comb where you previously cut so you can see how the hair lays. Alright, so by now you should have the first line that you created with the 0, second that you created with the half, and third that you created with the 1 guard lever fully open. We're going to start with that one and work our way down. Using my 1.5 guard, I'm going to close the lever just slightly, putting it in that 3/4 position, which is somewhere between fully open and halfway. That's why I call it that 3/4 position. I suggest you highly get these half guards, guys. The half guard and the 1.5 guard, they make your life a whole lot easier, especially if you're a barber full time or even just learning. It's going to make your job easier. It's going to help you learn faster as well. Another tip I do have for y'all is every time I switch out my guards or even step back to look at the haircut, I always turn my clipper off just to ensure that it doesn't get real hot. I know some of y'all have commented down below that y'all's clippers keep getting hot, so that's my biggest tip for that. Now with my half guard lever still in that 3/4 position, we're going to attack the second line coming down. And when I'm working my way down to start erasing these guidelines that I initially created, I mainly use the corners of the clippers as it does make it a whole lot easier. But one thing with this half guard is it is going to create a faint line right above that, but please do not take this step higher than it needs to. We're going to come back right now with the 1 guard and erase the guideline that this half guard is creating. And again, like I say in all my videos, take your time with this process, guys. I still take 45 minutes to an hour, even on kids' haircuts. Now with my 1 guard lever still in that 3/4 position, we're going to erase that guideline that I mentioned earlier that half guard created. Again, using mainly the corners to approach these lines, going all around the head. And finally, for the last guideline, we're going to start with the lever fully closed, open it halfway, and then open it all the way. We're going to use that 3-step process and work in small sections. I'm going to focus just on the left side of the head. And that 3-step process, I'm going to take each of those notches up just slightly. Again, using mainly the corners, guys. If you're not used to using the corners, I highly suggest you start using them just to get a feel of what they do. Now moving the lever halfway and continuing the process. And finally, we're going to open the lever completely. And there it is, guys. I'm pretty much done with the fade. Now for the back part, I even break that down into 2 smaller sections. I'm going to focus just on this back left side of the head, just because the back of the head could be a little more tedious. Here I'm putting my lever halfway. Again, I did start with the lever completely closed. And finally, it's going to be fully open. Now we're just going to continue that process, starting with the lever closed, taking that up just slightly. Now we're going to open it halfway. And finally, we're going to open it all the way. And one thing I highly suggest is you keep a small brush on your opposite hand, as I do cut out the times where I'm brushing because I mean it's kind of boring, but I do brush after every couple strokes just so I can see the details a lot better. And we're pretty much done with the fade all around, guys. Now I'm just going to touch up any dark spots using my half guard, and we're going to start with the lever fully open and just close it as I need to. There's no one-stop shop for this. This last step is going to vary from client to client and literally from one side of the head to the other. Now using my trimmer in this position just to get a lot closer to the scalp. And then what I do is I turn the trimmer around and blend that Sub-Zero line right in. And what this is going to do is this is just going to get a lot closer to the scalp and create more separation. That way we know exactly how high up to take up the shaver. And just continue that all around the head. And yes, every single one of my clippers is zero gap. And all the equipment that I use in these videos, guys, is in the description down below in case y'all want to check it out. And finally removing the last of the hair. And as you can see, as I'm coming up to the top, you can see that separation that I created by turning the trimmer around. And that separation acts as a guideline, so now we know exactly how high up to take the shaver. And just make sure, even as you're approaching the top of that line, just use the corners of the shaver as if it was a clipper, just to make sure we don't create another guideline. We're pretty much done with the fade. Now to begin the edge up, as usual, I start in the middle and work my way to the sides. And even when I start coming to the opposite side, I always start from the middle as my guideline and move my way to the other side. And finally, just creating the part. And honestly, there is no right or wrong on these parts. I mean, some clients do have natural parts and they want to go along with that. But if they want something, you know, just a little bit different, there's really no right or wrong on that either. As long as the hair lays in a good position, you're pretty much good for it. Here, just applying a little bit of shave gel just so I don't irritate this little man's skin. And as usual, I start shaving with the grain and then continue that by shaving against the grain. And as you can see, I'm always using my opposite hand to help stretch the skin. It's very important that you learn the strokes of your straight razor, guys. That way you can move very comfortably and you don't have to recline them or put your arms in crazy positions just to shave against the grain. And anytime the client uses gel on his hair, I always put the gel on the comb and run that from the bottom of the grain all the way up using the fine side of the comb. And then I follow along that with the wide part of the comb just to add a little bit more texture. And finally, just adding a little bit of enhancements to make his haircut pop. As usual, it's diluted about half with water and half with semi-permanent hair dye. And we're finally done, guys. Here is the before, and boom, here is the after. A high fade with the hard part on top. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial, guys. Let us know down in the comments below what y'all would like for us to do next, even something that y'all learned. But as usual, guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Until next time, guys, peace.